Okay, so remember that feeling when you finally finished that dissertation, like you'd climbed Mount Everest or something?
Oh, yeah, I remember that feeling.
Well, now it's like you're at base camp, you're ready for a new adventure, but this time it's your career. And you've given us this stack of articles all about career paths after a PhD, and it's clear you want a roadmap.
Definitely.
Like, where do I even begin? What's plan A? What's plan B? And hey, if there's some secret plan Z out there, we're gonna find it together.
I love it. Plan Z, the mystery option.
Right. So before we get ahead of ourselves, I think we need to talk about one of the biggest myths out there about life after a PhD. What do you think?
Oh, I know exactly what you're going to say. The myth that a PhD equals academia.
Bingo! And you know what? The numbers just don't back that up anymore. Over 70% of PhDs, get this, they're not working in academia just 3.5 years after graduation.
Yeah, that's a pretty big reality check for a lot of people.
It is. So while academia is still a totally viable option, it's not the only one, not by a long shot. But why do you think this whole PhD to professor pipeline idea is so persistent?
Well, you have to look at the historical context. For decades, academia was pretty much seen as the main path, partly because the job market was different, and there was this whole idea of prestige associated with being a professor.
Right, like you made it if you became a professor.
Exactly. But things have changed, and those perceptions just haven't quite caught up.
One article even uses this phrase, institutional inertia.
Interesting.
It's basically describing how slow academia can be to adapt its career advice for PhD students. It's like this pressure, even if it's unspoken, to stay within the ivory tower.
Yeah, I can see how that would create a lot of anxiety for people who are exploring other options.
For sure. So how do we break free from that old way of thinking?
By understanding the full spectrum of options and acknowledging that a PhD gives you this incredible toolkit of transferable skills.
Oh, I like that. A toolkit.
Yeah, you spent years honing your analytical thinking, problem solving, communication skills.
Yeah.
These are valuable assets in any field.
You're not kidding. I mean, you spend years doing a PhD. It's like boot camp for your brain.
It really is. And think about data analysis, for example.
Okay.
One of the articles pointed out how a PhD in history, where you analyze all those documents and draw conclusions, that can actually be a great fit for something like market research or financial analysis.
You wouldn't immediately think of those fields, would you?
Right. But when you break it down, it makes total sense.
Totally. And that's just one example.
Exactly. We see these connections in other fields, too. You could have a PhD in literature and end up in editing, content creation, even UX design. The possibilities are huge if you know how to translate your skills.
This is already starting to feel a lot less like staring into a void and more like an adventure, you know?
That's the spirit.
But I still think it's important to have that plan A, even if it's not necessarily academia.
100%. So let's dive into what a career in academia actually looks like these days.
Sounds good. And then, of course, we need to explore some awesome plan B options outside the ivory tower.
Okay, wait.
We'll get to those next.
Going through all these articles, one thing that really stood out to me was the sheer variety of industries that are looking for PhD grads.
Oh, really? Like who?
It's not just about research labs and universities anymore. I mean, we're talking everything from tech to healthcare to finance.
Okay, now I'm really interested. Let's break it down by industry. First up, the tech world.
All right, tech it is. So you'd be surprised how many PhDs are finding their way into data science, software development, even product management.
Yeah, I guess I always kind of pictured tech as being for, the coding whiz kids, not necessarily PhDs.
It's a common misconception, but tech companies, they really value those rigorous analytical skills, problem-solving abilities, project management. I mean, that's what a PhD is all about, right?
Right. You basically manage this huge project for years when you're doing a dissertation.
Exactly. Meticulous planning, research, analysis, communication, it's all there.
Like transferable skills galore.
Exactly. And it's not just about hard skills either.
Mm.
Tech companies, they also value things like intellectual curiosity and being able to adapt, to learn new things quickly.
Because tech changes so fast.
All the time.
Yeah.
And don't forget communication skills. PhDs, they're often really good at explaining complicated stuff in a way that anyone can understand.
Yeah, you kind of have to be when you're defending your dissertation, right?
Exactly. You take all those years of experience presenting at conferences, writing papers, and you apply it to a whole new arena.
Cool. So tech's a good option. What else is out there?
Well, the healthcare and pharmaceutical industries are looking for more and more PhDs.
For what kind of roles?
Research and development, clinical trials management, even regulatory affairs.
I can see that. You need serious scientific rigor in those areas. And of course, data analysis is huge in healthcare now.
Huge. And then there's consulting.
Consulting. Okay.
Yeah, they love the strategic thinking skills that PhDs bring. Problem solving, the ability to synthesize tons of information.
So you could be advising businesses on all sorts of things.
All sorts, from market strategy to organizational development, using the same critical thinking skills you honed during your research.
I like it.
And we can't forget about finance.
Finance. Really?
Oh yeah, quantitative finance, risk management, data analysis, those areas are attracting a ton of PhDs in math, statistics, even physics.
It's like taking those equations and models you've mastered and applying them to the real world of money.
Exactly. And even fields like publishing, journalism, communications are realizing the value of a PhD.
Because of the research and writing skills, right?
Absolutely. Being able to clearly communicate complex ideas is super valuable in those fields.
Okay, so it sounds like the opportunities are pretty vast. But I'm guessing making the jump from academia to industry isn't always easy.
It can be a challenge.
Yeah.
But that's why these articles are so helpful. They offer some great advice for navigating that shift.
Like what?
Well, one of the biggest things they emphasize is starting early with your career exploration.
We touched on this earlier, right?
Right. Don't wait until you're almost done with your PhD to start thinking about what's next.
So what should you be looking at job postings in your first year?
Maybe not job postings, but you can start exploring different career paths. Go to career fairs. Connect with people who are actually working in fields that you think might be interesting.
Getting a feel for things.
Exactly. It's like laying the groundwork while you're still building up your research expertise.
Okay, I like that. So you're gathering information, building your network. What else?
And then, as you get closer to finishing up, it's really important to translate your academic experience into language that resonates with industry employers.
Because, let's be honest, a CV full of academic jargon probably won't impress a tech startup.
Probably not. So it's about reframing your experiences to highlight the transferable skills that employers are looking for.
So how do you do that? How do you take a dissertation on, I don't know, the history of urban development and make it relevant for a tech company?
Okay, good example. Instead of just listing the topic, you could talk about how you analyzed huge data sets, identified trends, drew conclusions from complex historical data.
So you're basically showcasing your data analysis skills, which are hot in tech right now.
Super hot. Or let's say you publish papers during your PhD. You could emphasize your strong communication skills, your ability to explain complex information to a specific audience.
Right, because writing for academic journals is great practice for writing reports or even marketing materials in the corporate world.
Exactly. And don't be shy about highlighting any leadership experience you might have. Maybe you taught, mentored students, organized events.
So it's about taking those experiences that might seem purely academic and showing how they've actually prepared you for the real world of work.
100%. And then there's networking, which is always key, but especially when you're stepping outside of academia.
Because you're entering a whole new world.
You need to connect with people who are working in those industries. Go to industry events. Reach out to alumni from your program who have made the jump successfully.
Tap into the wisdom of those who have gone before you.
Exactly. And remember, networking isn't just about asking for a job.
It's about building relationships.
Exactly. It's about getting insights, learning about different career paths, expanding your horizons, discovering possibilities you might not have even thought of.
That makes sense. So networking is key. What about interviews? Are those different in industry compared to academia?
Definitely. Industry interviews tend to be less focused on your specific research topic and more interested in your ability to solve problems, work in teams, and fit within the company culture.
So it's less about being a subject matter expert and more about showing you can think critically, be adaptable, be a team player.
Exactly. And be prepared for behavioral questions.
Oh, those. Tell me about a time when questions.
Yep. They want to hear specific examples of how you've handled challenging situations in the past.
To see how you react under pressure, how you work with others.
Right. It's about showing you have the interpersonal skills and emotional intelligence to thrive in a collaborative environment.
Got it. So you're not just a brilliant researcher, you're also a well-rounded human being who can work effectively with others. That makes sense.
And one of the articles had this great story about an interviewee who actually realized during the interview process that the job wasn't right for them.
Oh, wow, and they walked away.
They did. They had the courage to say, you know what, this isn't the right fit.
That takes guts, especially when you're looking for a job and you really want it.
It does. But ultimately, it's about prioritizing your own happiness and career fulfillment. Declining a job offer, it's perfectly fine. It's about making choices that are aligned with your values and your goals.
So it's not about taking the first thing that comes along. It's about being strategic, being intentional.
Exactly. And don't forget to celebrate those small victories along the way. Just getting an interview is a big deal. Your resume stood out, your skills are in demand. It's a step in the right direction.
Definitely something to celebrate.
Absolutely. And remember, rejection is a part of the game. It's not a reflection of your worth or your abilities.
It's just part of the process.
Exactly. And you know what? Sometimes those rejections can actually lead you to even better opportunities down the road.
That's a good way to look at it. So what else did these articles say about navigating this whole post-PhD job search?
Well, one thing that came up a lot was the sheer volume of applications you might need to send out.
Oh no, how many are we talking?
One source actually mentioned a statistic of sending out 100 applications to get one job offer in the corporate world.
100. Seriously.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a competitive market out there.
Yeah.
But that number, it includes all kinds of applications, networking, unsolicited, even those jobs that aren't publicly advertised.
So you have to be proactive, put yourself out there.
Exactly. Cast a wide net. And remember, every application is a chance to refine your pitch, highlight those relevant skills, get your name in front of more people.
It's a numbers game, but each interaction counts.
Precisely. And you never know, that 100th application might just be the one that lands you your dream job.
Okay, so preparation is key. But I have to imagine that even with all the prep in the world, the job search can be kind of a roller coaster, emotionally speaking. Did the articles talk about how to manage all that?
Or absolutely. They actually emphasize self-care a lot.
Self-care. Okay.
Yeah, it's easy to forget about taking care of yourself when you're, super focused on landing a job.
You're so busy trying to reach the destination that you forget to, fuel up along the way.
Exactly. And one source actually compared the post-PhD job search to an emotional roller coaster with, the highs of getting an interview and the lows of those rejections.
Yeah, I can see that. So how do you deal with all of that without totally burning out?
Well, it starts with the basics, honestly. Making sure you're getting enough sleep, eating decent food, moving your body a little bit. Easy to say, harder to do when you're stressed, right?
Totally. But it's like we were saying before, this is a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. And you need to take care of yourself to have the energy to keep going. But it's not just about the physical stuff. It's the mental and emotional well-being, too.
So besides eating your veggies and getting some sleep, what else can you do?
You have to make time for things that you actually enjoy, things that help you relax. Reading, spending time outdoors, listening to music, whatever it is that kind of refills your tank.
Give yourself permission to step away from the job hunt and just breathe.
Exactly. And if you're really struggling, don't hesitate to reach out for professional support. Therapy, counseling, support groups, those can be super helpful.
Yeah, having someone to talk to who really gets it can make such a difference.
It really can. And it's okay to need help. There's no shame in that.
It's like we've talked about plan A, plan B, even that mysterious plan Z. But maybe the most important plan of all is having a plan for self-care.
I love that, a self-care plan. And honestly, I think a lot of PhDs could benefit from that.
Couldn't agree more. And as we wrap up this deep dive, one of the things that really struck me from these articles was this emphasis on celebrating those small victories.
Oh yeah, that's so important. It's easy to just keep pushing toward the next goal and forget to acknowledge how far you've already come.
Like, okay, got the interview, on to the next application.
Exactly. But celebrating those wins, even the little ones, it can really help to keep you motivated.
So what does that look like? Are we talking like throwing a party every time you submit a job application?
Huh. Not necessarily. I mean, it could be something as simple as, I don't know, getting your favorite coffee after a good day of working on your resume.
Or taking a walk in the park to celebrate finally finishing that cover letter.
Exactly. Just little things to mark those milestones and acknowledge your own progress.
And don't be afraid to share those wins with your people.
Yes. Let your friends and family celebrate with you.
Build that positive energy,
Absolutely. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've talked about the myths of the post-PhD job search, the wide range of career paths out there, the importance of translating your skills, networking, nailing those interviews.
Phew, I'm exhausted just thinking about it all.
Me too. But seriously, the big takeaway here is that you've already accomplished something amazing by earning that PhD.
You've climbed Mount Everest, right?
Exactly. Now it's time to use all that knowledge, all that experience to create a career that you're actually excited about.
And remember, there's no one right path. Embrace the unknown, trust your gut, and most importantly, enjoy the journey.
Couldn't say it better myself.
To all our listeners out there who are navigating this post-PhD world, you've got this. Seriously, you've done the hard part. Now go out there and make it happen.